Here are the top 5 comps that you should play on patch 13.21. This is the last patch before we are able to play on set 10. The first comp that we're gonna look at is Mulicaster's Void. This is one of the newer comps from China. Mulicasters have been nerfed, but it didn't hit Mulicaster's Void that hard. Get to level 7 as fast as possible, get 6 in the trade since it gives us Herald, get all of your units to 3-star, and add in a few more Mulicasters to buff up the team. The main thing is, the more units you have to 3-star, the stronger the frontline will be. We will have Vel'Koz as our main carry, and give him a mana item, a gauntlet +1. If we are not using Giant Slayer, we could also use something like Gunblade, and we could also use something like Guardbreaker, and when it comes to Kai'Sa, she will use kind of the same items. Cho'Gath is not the main tank, but he is still the tankiest unit that we could put item on. And that is why we're putting Sunfire Cape for anti-heal, a Spark for anti-magic resist, and just another tank item to keep him alive. Are we getting any leftover items, we'll put it on Kassadin. Before we're getting to this point, we will play the early Void units, that will be Cho'Gath, Kassadin, and Malzahar. And then we could add in something like Renekton for a stronger frontline, and Cass, who could carry Vel'Koz items before you're finding the full comp. This is a really strong early game comp, and is something that you should look for if you want to play the full board. But get to level 7 as fast as possible, get all of your units to 3-star. When you hit all of them, or almost all of them, go to level 8 and add in one more Mulicaster. And from here you just have a solid top 4 or even contender for top 1. The augments that we are looking for is something like Mulicaster Soul, Void Soul, and Golden Ticket. Just because it gives us more mana to Vel'Koz, Void Soul to hit 6 in the trade before we are finding Kai'Sa, and Golden Ticket to hit all of our units to 3-star. If we want to force this comp, we want to pick Lee Sin as our legend, since his augment at 2-1 is great by default for this comp. Next up we have Sorcerers with Silco as our main carry. The main thing is that we are playing for 6 Sorcerers. And that means before we finding Ahri, we have to play another unit that could hold the items. That could be something like Malzahar, since it still gives us 6 in the trade, and then we can just pivot the items over whenever we're finding Ahri. Else another option is to play around Void units, play for 4 Sorcerers and more frontline, that could be more Bastion units, and then just get to level 8 and pivot into this comp. When we look at Silco, we want at least 1 mana item, but else we have a lot of options. It could be everything from Gunblade, Morello, Giant Slayer, Gauntlet, and even Archangel. As long as you make him cast all the time, he will be able to keep up the health of our units and also doing tons of damage. Whenever we get to the point where we have Ahri online with items, we do have our win condition, but else if we get to level 9, we could always play Heimerdinger for more stun, Sion for another CC, and Aatrox is also always a good option. And here you have yourself a top 4 and even a contender for top 1. When it comes to augments, a specific one for Sorceress, more AP for the whole team, or even giving ourselves the option to go for 8 Sorcerers at level 9 is some of the best for this particular comp. One tip is to build specific tank items for Taric. That means something like Stoneblade, Warmong, and even Bramblevest. And then you put these support kinda tank items on Shen. That could be Spark for the Shred. It could also be Redemption to heal up Taric, but else play this comp if you're finding yourself a crest. Next up we have Demacia with Kale. So are we finding ourselves a lot of Kale units and even components for Rageblade? We will go for this comp. We want to have Kale to 3-star as fast as possible, and that's why we are going for a lose streak early in the game. After getting Kale to 3-star, we want to push up in levels so we can get 7 Demacia online. That means we're getting a lot of radiant items, and that will mainly go on Kale, Fiora, Galio, or Jarvan, depending on who we have items for and who is leveled up. But as soon as we're getting most of the units 2-star, we will start go up in levels. And the best thing we can do is to add in more Slayers to buff up Kale. Other than Quinn, we could add in something like Mulicaster and Aatrox to give ourselves 7 in Demacia and 4 in Slayers. This is also the board that you would look for if you go to level 9. Do remember, are we getting to level 9, Kale will be buffed up even more, and this is your win condition if you want to win the game. Are we getting a specific augment for Demacia? Are we taking that? We could also go for Demacia Crest if we want to get to 7 Demacias earlier, and we could also go for Slayer Crest to hit Slayers earlier. If we're getting a Slayer Crest, we'll put it on Fiora. If we're getting a Demacia crest, we'll put it on Aatrox. There was a bug before where we're not really getting the Radiant item on Aatrox if you use the emblem, but that bugs have been fixed, and we can now put the emblem on Aatrox and get a huge value out of it. When it comes to Legend, we could even go for Lee Sin for the reroll, but we could also go for Earth since there's a lot of emblems that are really good in the current patch. Next up we have the Bilgewater with Nilah as the main carry. So the main thing about this comp is that we want to have 7 in Bilgewater, and we do also want rapid fire cannons on Nilah. From here, all the other units worth mentioning is Nautilus, who wants to have the tank items, Misfortune, who wants to have the AP and mana items, and if you get further more items and even hit Gangplank, we could put similar items on him. So what we want to do is to get to level 7 as fast as possible and get Nilah online. And let's say that we do not have these 2 units since we didn't hit Gangplank yet, and Twisted Fate is just kind of a leftover unit at this point since the nerf was really huge, so we can instead decide to play more Juggernauts. That means we are playing 5 in Bilgewater instead and then having 4 Juggernaut units. Whenever we hit Gangplank, we can add him in and then put Twisted Fate back in just for getting 7 in the trait, and then take off these 2 units that doesn't really fit the comp and play for the full board. If you for some reason are getting 2 emblems, we will play for 9 Bilgewater, which is really good. And here we are not playing the 2 Juggernaut units, but instead playing something like Aatrox and Jarvan, which makes this team almost a guaranteed top 1. And are we in this situation, we will obviously drop Darius. But in a more realistic situation, we're playing the common comp. And that means that this is the board that we're looking for. When we get to level 7, see if we have the chance to get all the units to 2-star, add in Gangplank at level 8 if you hit him, and you can even hold the item on Twisted Fate if you already made them. And are we getting to level 9, we will add in a unit like Jarvan who can AoE stun. Are we staying at level 8, we will try to roll for Nautilus to 3-star and Misfortune to 3-star as well, since they both got a buff last patch, and that will basically be it for this comp. When it comes to augments, we want Bilgewater Crest to get 7 in the trait faster. We can also play the specific one, but we could also just play for whatever combat augment that we find. When it comes to legends, we can play whatever is the strongest one in the meta, but if you want a specific one, we could go for something like Vladimir, but we could also go for a fast level 8 with Tahm Kench. The last comp is the Piltover comp, and here we want to start with 3 units from the Piltover. As soon as we get that online, we will start doing a lose streak, and in the best case, we are doing a 7 lose streak with these units. Whenever we get up in levels, we will add in units from these traits. That could be something like Jinx, it could also be something like Graves, and another option could be something like Renekton, but the main thing is that we need to lose. When we have 7 losses in a row with T-Hex online, we will be around 20 stacks. If we can get even further up in stacks, that will be even better, but else go for around 20 stacks. Then we can either decide to roll at level 6 to get Jinx up in stars, get her items, and then win a round to cash out. We could also go for level 7 or level 8 and do a cash out there. Then we want to have Aphelios and Sejuani online and get them the items. There will be tank items on Sejuani and AD items on Aphelios. If you imagine having 6 losses and doing a roll down so you get all your units to 2-star, having items similar to this on your units, do the win and do the cash out, then get Jace and Jinx to 3-star, go up in levels and add more units. That could be one way to win the game. The other option that I mentioned before is to get to level 7 or 8, and here we add in the Aphelios, adding the items over, putting in Sejuani and putting the items over to him. And this will be the board that you're playing for level 7 for the cash out. Get all the value, all of that, and do start your win streak. When we get to the later stages, we still want to play 4 gunners, and that could be by playing Gangplank instead of Jinx. It could also be by putting in Heimerdinger instead of Vi. And from here, we just want to add in some of the strongest units there is, and that could be Sion, and it could also be Aatrox. And this could be a really strong level 9 board. Everyone to 2-star, and get as many AD items on Aphelios and as many tank items on Sejuani. Yeah, and that is basically it. A really strong board if you're hitting the 3 Piltovers early. Are we playing this board? We will go for everything that I'm mentioning gunners. So that will be dueling gunners, and it could also be Gunner's Crest, which you can put on Echo, and then you can play Jinx as well. This will make us have 6 in Gunners, which is really strong as well. If we want to force this comp, we have to go for the Penguin, and I have already made a full guide on this comp and how you can play it and even force it. So if you want to play this comp, you can watch that video. That was all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my tier list in a few days.